The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
So it's 1 p.m. here, so it's time to get started. I'm Erin Kopek, Marketing Coordinator for Extra Help, a workforce management resource. You have joined Extra Help's Workplace Excellence webinar today entitled Psychographics, Nonsense or Necessity. And our presenter today will be Dorothy Carlin, and she'll be introduced momentarily. The Workplace Excellence webinars are an exciting new program for Extra Help clients and colleagues to manage workforce changes and increase workplace efficiency. A few things before we begin. This call will last 1 hour. You are set up as listen-only mode, but there are and will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end. Questions can be posted throughout via the messaging function of GoToWebinar if you choose. At the end, I will open up the mic for our panelists to address them directly. So let's get started. Today, our presenter is Dorothy Carlin, Principal Strategist for Simply Strategy.
So Erin, I think you're turning it over to me, huh?
Yes, you should have keyboard and mouse capabilities right now.
Well, hello everybody and welcome. Again, my name is Dorothy Carlin. Thanks for attending. Today I'm on a mission to prove to you that psychographics are serious and important. At the end we're going to do an exercise. It might feel a little silly, but if you bear with me, it will all fit together. Erin, I'm trying to advance, so...
All right.
There we are. So a little about my psychographics. I've always wanted to work in advertising. I decided in 1993, which was the height of Melrose Place. And if you remember that TV drama on Fox, it starred Heather Locklear, and she was this advertising and marketing maven. So for almost 2 decades, I've worked in some of the biggest agencies owned by international conglomerates, tiny boutiques, as well as mid-market firms. But Simply Strategy was founded to leverage what I loved most about marketing and research, maybe leaving behind what I didn't like as much about the agency world. This year we're going to celebrate our 5th year in business, and we continue to do what we set out to do from the beginning, which is connect research to resources and focus simply on strategy and the project management needed to get stuff done. Now, I spend a lot of time in organizations that I need to learn from. Some of those are on the left. And then I spend a lot of time with organizations that pay the bills, and some of those are in the middle. Work hard and be nice is a simple personal value statement, but back to psychographics, work ethic is part of who I am, and if a company were to want to serve me as a client or a customer, it would be important for them to understand that. And I'm trying to advance, Ms. Erin. So I'll start. I can't talk about the next slide because it's very visual. Erin, can you help me with the moving of it forward? One second while we work out this technical glitch. That was a particularly good hair day for me. My hair does not look like that today. But isn't that always the case when you are getting a headshot done? Here we are. So I like this cartoon. The chicken is asking, but what does it mean? And the box is answering, I don't care. I'm still Fergalicious. This is a reference to Fergie from the Black Eyed Peas, and certainly being Fergalicious is sort of nonsense. But psychographics really are not nonsense, but I still feel like sometimes when I use the word, people look at me like I've sort of just made it up. Psychographics are an important component, just as important as demographic and geographic targeting to marketing. So in demographic groups, you look at people that share the same age, sex, race, income, or job. But as individuals, they really might look at life differently, and that's the lens they use to evaluate products, ideas, brands, and companies. So psychographics are useful to segmentation and defining a narrower and more specific customer group, or perhaps even identifying the values of employee groups or teams. So before we even start talking about the definition of psychographics, I wanted to talk a little bit about segmentation. A large portion of market research is concerned with segmentation and looking at buying behavior of consumers and organizational buyers. And the reasons for segmenting are very straightforward, but I thought we'd review just a couple of them. Because of slower market growth and increased global competitive forces, it's fostered more competition, increasing the need to identify target markets with unique needs. The second one is regarding social, economic, and expanding media that have produced consumers that are more varied. They have more sophisticated needs, tastes, and lifestyle. You probably see this in yourself at times. The third one is it's just possible to segment more specifically. Technological advances make it possible to devise programs that focus really precisely on defined segments through your email or your web-based tools. The fourth one really has to do with different buyers. For instance, minority buyers do not necessarily adopt the same social and economic habits as the mainstream. So they're not buying and interacting with businesses and companies the same way. And the last one says that 4 in 10 U.S. residents identify with a segment or group that does not reflect the white heterosexual customer that historically defined the mainstream. And that was the advertising in the Mad Men age. And now there are a lot of different, when you look at just moms in general, a lot of different value sets for moms as they interact with brands, with companies, and with products. So I thought we'd start off with, again, I still haven't defined psychographics, and I realize that, but I'm hopefully leading you to some of the ideas about it. I'm going to show you a couple of ads that are psychographics in work. We could have looked at any form of communication. We could be looking at certainly interactive work, or we could be looking at websites, or we could be looking at any communication form, but it's really easy in a PowerPoint to look at ads. And sometimes they're sort of fun to see. So I picked these out because I thought that it would appeal to this group based on what your companies and your interests are. This ad is pictures a very generic conference room space. Pretty boring. And the headline reads, "Hell isn't all fire and brimstone. Sometimes it's carpeted." And it's an ad from the Vancouver Convention Center. So it's targeting meeting decision makers. They could be lower level meeting managers. Maybe it's a key influencer in the decision, like of an executive level, perhaps maybe someone who has actually been to hell before, a bad meeting. So if it's that meeting manager, this ad has a sense of humor, so let's hope that the meeting manager does too. But what this ad is saying is that conferences, seminars, and events can be really painful. And the meeting manager targeted in this ad cares about their job. They don't want to put on a disappointing event or make a bad decision. This guy could be, and maybe it's a girl, maybe she's insecure. Perhaps she's had a bad experience in the past and she really wants to ensure that she picks a destination that is going to make for a successful event. And that's really perhaps what's behind how she's feeling before you even decide what benefit to focus on as the convention center. Here's another one. We got a pair of men's shoes and a 2-sentence headline that reads, "We build things to last. Maybe we should start a bank." So obviously it targets males, but do all males aspire to wear Timberland shoes? I would say no. But this ad is targeting somebody who cares about quality, clearly. That's not hard to deduce. He has high expectations of products. Perhaps he's frustrated and disappointed by those things in life that don't meet his expectations, including our financial system. Maybe he's somebody who has more traditional values and is hardworking. We could probably even stretch it to say he wishes the world might be more like him and seeks products with the same or similar values. And this last one I really like because it's very different when you think about advertising, business-to-business advertising for a law firm. So the main headline reads accomplish something, but the smaller subheading, if you can read it, says remember you hire a law firm to help you accomplish something. It targets the business owner or the general counsel, somebody who is responsible for managing the risk and liabilities of an organization. This person certainly wants to get stuff done. Maybe he or she has felt trapped or stymied by the approach of other professional service firms in the past. He wants to take his business forward. He dislikes the status quo. He might even believe that all law firms are the same. So this law firm is reaching out to him, appealing to him emotionally and saying, we'll get you unstuck. You can have a higher expectation of us. Certainly in just 2 words there, accomplish something. So hopefully you're starting to deduce a little bit about what psychographics are and that they can be used in business-to-business context as well as business-to-consumer. But now I want to share with you the actual definitions. Even I have a hard time understanding the MRA definition, and this is from the marketing research text. But I wanted to share it because I wanted you to know that this is not a nonsensical word. Psychographics refer to the psychological profiles of individuals and psychologically based measures of lifestyle. So how they, again, perceive the world, how they spend money, what their values are. These are the measures of lifestyle. So far more simply put, values, attitudes, and beliefs. This is your customer, your employee, your key prospect. This is who they are as people. And when you understand your key prospects' psychographics, you're enabled to appeal to them on a more emotional level and not just based on the features of your company brand or product alone. So you're really appealing to them based on what you know is important to them. And this is the basis, the due diligence of branding and identifying a brand positioning. And I like to say what a brand positioning is, and everybody says it a little bit differently, but this is how I say it. It's what is true about your product, service, or idea, unique in the marketplace, and emotionally relevant to your best key prospect. And emotionally relevant is really key in that statement and part of why psychographics are so important. I'll just say it over one more time because it's like really simple but very complex at the same time. Your brand positioning is what is true about your product, service, or idea, unique in the marketplace, and emotionally relevant to your best key prospect. So, I mean, it's just something to keep in mind if you're ascribing to connecting more emotionally with people through communications. And it's hard to do that because they're feeling and thinking a lot, and oftentimes it's not about you or your product or service or your company. If it was as simple as knowing what a dog was thinking, we would all be in luck. If I could draw you as a third person, as a third creature on this cartoon, it would be, you know, what do you think of my brand? What do you think of my product? What do you think of me? And that's really not what they're doing at all. They have so many other things on their minds. And back to demographic, you know, kind of segmentation. Demographic groups of people might share the same age, sex, race, or occupation, but they really look at life differently. And then, or within that demographic group, they might really look at life differently. And that's the lens they use to evaluate products, ideas, and brands. So now that I've shared just a little bit about what psychographics are, it wouldn't be fair to have a webinar on psychographics without telling you how to identify them, maybe how to do some of this yourself. But there are various sources, number of tools where you can identify psychographics. The first are syndicated research tools that have those psychographic profiles or those personality profiles that have already been developed, and VALS is one of them. There are other profile tools that organizations use, things like DISC or Myers-Briggs. Those are very similar, not necessarily used in a marketing context where VALS is, but same sort of syndication or application process. There's primary research. There's interviews, the depth interviews you can do with employees, key prospect groups, customers, from a sort of an objective standpoint, looking at how they're making decisions. Focus groups are certainly another form. Perhaps you would start with a focus group and then confirm or follow up with quantitative research, something like a survey, really to be sure that your hypotheses are correct. And while I would certainly advocate for as a researcher for certain, I would certainly advocate these approaches to questions if the resources and the market opportunity was warranted, there are some simple things you can do, one of which we'll do today. It's that creative exercise I sort of promised at the beginning, and I call it non-scientific psychographics. And while I didn't make up the word psychographics, I definitely made up the word non-scientific psychographics. This is my own made-up word, and so at least I'm honest about my jargon. And as we start this exercise, I want to tell you a little bit about it first before we look at the questions. It's called Put Yourself in My Shoes. And the my refers to your client, customer, or employee. And so the purpose of this mental calisthenic, and it is hard work, is to envision your best key prospect, or one of them, and imagine who they are as people. Pretend to be them. So I think lots of times when people do this exercise with me, they draw from existing customers or employees as they think through the questions, which are going to appear on the next 2 slides. But again, this is supposed to be fictional. It's not necessarily a profile of anyone specifically. And the single most important thing to remember as you do this is it is not you. This is not what you would do. This is not how you look at the world. This is trying to anticipate what's going on with them. So here we begin. Put yourself in my shoes. Non-scientific psychographic work. So as you're thinking about your best key prospect, give yourself a name. That certainly identifies your sex. How old are you? Are you single or are you married? Maybe you're on your second marriage. How old are your kids? What's your job and where do you work? And this might be telling whether you have a very long title that's important to you, or you consider your job just getting things done. Do you work to live or live to work? Why? What are you thinking about on your commute? Are you listening to spiritual books on tape? Thinking about the argument you just had with your teenager? Cramming for the meeting that you have in 15 minutes? How is your house decorated? Or does it even matter to you? Is it basic stuff or the latest fast fashion from IKEA? What's your preferred beverage? Beer? A glass of wine every night? Long Island iced teas? Three glasses of water before lunch? How do you consume liquid? How do you consume beverages? And why? Do you work out? Why are we not? Are you well manicured or do you have dirt under your fingernails? Why is this? Is it because you don't care, you're too busy, or your work is too important to worry about such things? What do you read for fun? Online, offline, the funnies, license plates? What do you think of a dentist? Best day of the year? The report card on all of your hard work? Or a waste of your time because it takes you away from your work? Or is scary? What frustrates you at work? Will ruin your day? What will make your day? What keeps you up at night? And what's your favorite thing about weekends? So keep thinking about this, and I'm going to begin to talk a little bit in the background. So this is supposed to be fun, and it is, at least to me. It's the sort of thing you probably don't find the time to consider daily. So I encourage you to start thinking through some of these questions right away. either now as I'm talking or right after we get off the phone, and then start to examine what it means. And I wanted to give you just a couple quick examples. I did this exercise within the last couple of weeks with a client, and we were studying, it was a group, and we were studying high net worth individuals, specifically their clients. And so a number of participants in an input session were profiling a high net worth individual. And I'm going to back the slide up, and I'm going to go to the where do you work? I actually don't even have that question here, but it was one of the questions on this individualized put yourself in my shoes program or exercise. And as high net worth individuals, and as these are the people that are serving them, they said, you know, out on a farm, in a house that's paid for, you know, in a place I grew up, near where I grew up. And what was telling about that particular question to me was they weren't saying on Polo Drive in Clayton, or in a large home in Huntley, or in a high-rise overlooking the park. So these high net worth individuals, at least according to their clients, are perhaps not as consumed with status seeking. They're not as focused on where it is that they live and what that means as they are that their house is paid for, that they have that comfort, and that they have a little bit of space around them. The second question that struck me as we were doing this exercise, where multiple clients were responding, and I was looking for the trends across what their responses were, was a question regarding how do you want to interact with your financial advisor. And what I expected them to say was as little as possible. But they were saying things like, I want to be able to, my financial advisor is my friend. We do things together. We hang out. We go biking. We are part of the same friend group, which I thought was sort of telling about the type of relationship that these high net worth individuals desired from their vendors, which was sort of interesting. Again, at least it was interesting to me. And then lastly, one question that I thought was sort of telling was, what keeps you up at night? And across the board, these clients were saying that their key prospects, these high net worth individuals, are not kept up by much at night. They're living quite contently, which is not surprising. But it also says that it's harder to focus on a pain point because they are not particularly concerned with anything financial. To get their attention, usually in sales or in marketing, you have a problem to resolve. So that's sort of a challenge when you think about the values, attitudes, beliefs about how they perceive their financial situation. So again, this is how this tool could be used inside of your organization in thinking about who your key prospect is, as who your key prospects are as people. And as I said, this is non-scientific, but I believe it's necessary. And if you're thinking right now, as you should, that this is just one customer and you're guessing, well, that's right. It is the sample size of one hypothetical customer. But if a couple of individuals inside your firm do this exercise and you look for some trends, I still believe it has value. You certainly should do this for other segments you identify in your business to see if they align too. I mean, they may not align, and that's what's great about psychographics is you may not align on something demographically. They may not share the same income or age or geographic characteristics, but they may have the same values and believe the same thing about how they work or how they spend money or what they want to do with their time and how they want to interact with people. And certainly, before you make an investment in a large new marketing program to leverage this new hypothesis you have about your key prospect psychographics, it certainly would be smart to confirm those insights. But I would say you work with them every day, or someone in your organization does. So your imagination may not be too far off. And integrating a little of what you've supposed into the body of your communications, into how you write a sales letter, into an email, a blog topic, a marketing topic, in any small way, this is something that you can do now. Talking directly yet appropriately to your customers based on what they care about, whether it's taking care of their families or saving money or being perfect about teeth cleaning, keeping up keeping their jobs or just CYA. Understanding where they're coming at from life can mean that you will communicate more effectively. So I'm very efficient, obviously, at talking, and this is my last slide. It's Dorothy's definition of psychographics. But what I believe it is, who your clients are as human beings, their feelings as they engage with the world, which includes the interaction with your company, your product, or your service. And I believe it's essential. It's the key to making an emotional connection with your communications, in addition to using demographic and geographic tools as well. So with that, I thank you for letting me give you this brief synopsis of psychographics. And I welcome your questions. I hope that I have proven in some way that they are real. They are not nonsense. They're quite serious and important. And I thank you for your time, and I look forward to your questions. Aaron?
All right, Dorothy, thank you for joining us today. I do not see that there is any questions, so it looks like you covered the presentation pretty thorough. This ends our presentation. In our appreciation to Dorothy, and this concludes Extra Help's Workplace Excellence presentation. Please join us for our next webinar on Thursday, April 18th at 1 p.m. Look for your invitation in your email. Thank you.